The morning Helena Everhart broke the stallion that killed 3 men, she hummed a lullaby her mother sang before fever took her. The black beast had arrived at the Shafter, Texas ranch with a reputation darker than his coat, eyes rolling white with fury, hooves that struck like lightning. Ranch hands gathered at the corral fence to watch what they assumed would be a woman's final moments. Helena wore her father's old work shirt rolled to her elbows, her auburn hair braided down her back, and she entered that pen like she was walking into church. The stallion charged. Helena stood still as stone. At the last possible second, she stepped aside with a dancer's grace, her hand brushing his neck so gently the horse stumbled in confusion. The crowd murmured. For 2 hours she worked with that animal, never raising her voice, never lifting a whip. She breathed with him, moved when he moved, stilled when he stilled. By noon, that killer stallion was eating sugar from her palm and accepting a saddle like he'd been born for it. That was when Beckett Ashford rode into town with a string of wild mustangs and a problem that was costing him everything. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and eyes the color of Texas sky before a storm. Dust covered his boots, and his reputation preceded him. Beckett Ashford ran the largest horse operation in 3 counties, supplying cavalry mounts and ranch stock from El Paso to San Antonio. But lately, his methods had stopped working. Horses fought him. Training took months instead of weeks. 2 buyers had canceled contracts after his Mustangs arrived half-broken and dangerous. At 26, Beckett faced ruin, and pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. He found Helena mucking out stalls behind the Shafter livery, her sleeves pushed up, sweat dampening her collar. She was 23 and had been gentling horses since she could walk, learning from her father until he passed 2 winters back. Now she lived alone on their small property at the edge of town, taking work where she could find it. "You're the woman who broke midnight," Beckett said without preamble. His voice was rough from trail dust and something that might have been desperation. Helena looked up, pitchfork in hand, and studied him with eyes the color of creek water in summer. "That was his name." "Owner didn't bother telling me." "Owner's been telling everyone in town about it, says you worked magic." "Wasn't magic, was patience." She returned to her work, tossing soiled hay into a wheelbarrow. "Something you need, Mr. Beckett Ashford. I run the Ashford Ranch north of here." He dismounted, leading his horse closer. "I've got 40 head of Mustangs that need breaking before the cavalry contract deadline, 6 weeks from now. My way isn't working anymore. Horses are fighting back, getting hurt, and I'm losing money with every day that passes." Helena drove the pitchfork into the ground and faced him fully. He was handsome in the weathered way of men who lived outdoors, but his jaw was tight with tension, and his hands gripped his hat brim too hard. Desperation made people do interesting things, so find yourself more wranglers. Towns full of men looking for work. I don't need more men doing what doesn't work. I need someone who can teach me your way. Whatever you did with that stallion, I need to learn it. I'll pay you well. $50 for the 6 weeks plus room and board at the ranch. $50. Helena's breath caught. That was more money than she'd see in 6 months of livery work and odd jobs. Enough to pay off the loan on her father's land, enough to buy breeding stock and start her own small operation. Enough to stop wondering if she'd lose everything her family built. $60, she countered. "And I work the horses my way, no interference. Your ranch hands follow my lead or this won't work." Beckett's eyes narrowed, calculating, then he extended his hand. "Deal. We leave at dawn tomorrow." His palm was calloused and warm against hers, and Helena felt something shift in her chest like a horse finding its footing on uncertain ground. The Ashford ranch sprawled across a valley where mesquite trees cast long shadows, and the Chinati Mountains rose purple in the distance. The main house was adobe and timber, weathered but solid, surrounded by corrals and barns that spoke of serious horse business. 40 Mustangs milled in a large pen, their coats gleaming bronze and bay and paint in the afternoon sun. They were beautiful and wild, heads high, nostrils flaring at Helena's unfamiliar scent. The ranch hands gathered when Beckett introduced her. 12 men, ranging from grizzled veterans to young cowboys barely old enough to shave, all wearing variations of the same skeptical expression. A woman horse trainer was novel enough. A woman telling them what to do would be another matter entirely. "This is Helena Everhart," Beckett announced. "For the next 6 weeks she's training lead. What she says goes." A stocky man with a gray-shot beard spat tobacco juice. "Boss, you really going to let some girl tell us how to break horses? We've been doing this work since before she was born." "Your way put 3 horses lame last month, Carl. Miss Everhart's way works. You'll follow her lead or you'll draw your pay and ride out. Your choice." The men exchanged glances but nodded slowly. Helena understood. Respect had to be earned, not declared. She'd prove herself or fail on her own merit. She spent the rest of that day observing the horses, learning their temperaments, watching how they interacted. That evening, Beckett showed her to a small guest room in the ranch house, clean and spare with a window overlooking the corrals. "Dinner's at 6, he said from the doorway. "I'd like to hear your plan." "Over steak and beans at the long kitchen table," Helena explained. "Your men break horses by dominating them. Ropes and force, making the animal submit through exhaustion and fear. It works after a fashion, but you get horses that are broken in spirit as well as training. They'll do what you ask because they're afraid not to, but they'll never give you their best. They'll bolt at the first real danger, throw riders when startled because you've never earned their trust." Beckett listened, elbows on the table, his dinner forgotten. "So what's different about your way?" "I let the horse tell me what it needs. Every animal is different. Some need confidence, some need boundaries, some just need someone to be patient enough to understand them. I don't fight them. I show them I'm not a threat, that working with me is easier and better than fighting. It takes longer at first, but the end result is a horse that'll run through fire for you because it chooses to, not because it's terrified of punishment." Sounds almost too gentle for working animals. "Gentle doesn't mean soft. I set clear boundaries. The horses learn to respect them because I'm consistent, fair, and I respect them back. It's a partnership, not a dictatorship." Something in Beckett's expression shifted, like he was seeing her for the first time. "That's not how the world works, Miss Everhart. Not out here." "Maybe that's the problem," Helena said quietly. "Maybe we've been doing things the hard way for so long we've forgotten there might be a better path." The next morning, Helena began with the calmest horse in the bunch, a dun mare with intelligent eyes and a curious nature. The ranch hands gathered at the fence to watch, some genuinely interested, others waiting to see her fail. Beckett stood apart, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Helena entered the round pen alone. The mare startled, trotting to the far side. Helena didn't pursue. She simply stood, breathing slowly, lowering her gaze to appear less threatening. She waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Some of the hands drifted away, bored. Helena didn't move. Finally, the mare took 1 step closer, then another. Helena remained still. The mare approached until her breath warmed Helena's shoulder. Then she touched her nose to Helena's arm. Helena rewarded her by scratching the mare's forehead, finding the itchy spots that made her lean in with pleasure. Over the next hour, Helena worked through a progression of touches and movements, reading the mare's body language, responding to every signal. When the mare tensed, Helena backed off. When she relaxed, Helena progressed. By midday, she'd haltered the mare, run her hands over every inch of the horse's body, and picked up all 4 hooves without a single moment of panic or fight. "Tomorrow we'll do saddle work," Helena announced, leaving the pen. The mare followed her to the gate like a devoted dog. Carl the skeptic shook his head. "That's 1 day on a single horse. We've got 40 head in 6 weeks. Then I'd better start teaching you, hadn't I?" Helena met his eyes steadily. "Tomorrow morning 6 of you come to the pen. Watch what I do, ask questions, and then you'll each start working with a horse under my supervision. We'll get through them all, but only if you're willing to learn." The days fell into a rhythm. Helena rose before dawn, working with the gentlest horses first to demonstrate her methods. Beckett's men, initially resistant, began to see results that spoke louder than their pride. A paint gelding that had bucked off 3 riders stood calmly for a saddle after 2 days of patient work. A nervous bay mare stopped rearing when approached with soft words instead of harsh demands. Slowly, skepticism turned to curiosity, then to genuine engagement. Beckett watched it all. He worked alongside his men, learning Helena's techniques with a focus that surprised her. His hands, so accustomed to force, struggled with gentleness at first. He gripped lead ropes too tight, moved too quickly, expected immediate results. Helena corrected him constantly. "You're anticipating resistance," she told him one afternoon, watching him work with a sorrel mustang. "The horse feels your tension and mirrors it. Breathe, slow down. Let him set the pace. I've got 40 horses and a deadline breathing down my neck. Slow isn't something I can afford. Then you'll get exactly what you've always gotten, broken horses and broken trust." She moved into the pen beside him. "Here, watch." She took the lead rope from his hands, her fingers brushing his. The contact sent an unexpected warmth up her arm. Beckett stepped back and Helena demonstrated the approach again, her movements fluid and unhurried. The sorrel, who'd been dancing nervously, lowered his head and relaxed. "See? He wants to cooperate, you just have to let him." Beckett studied her, not the horse. "How did you learn this? It's not something anyone around here teaches." "My father." Helena's voice softened. "He believed animals deserved kindness, said if you treat a horse with respect, you get respect back. People thought he was crazy, but his horses were the best trained in the county. After he died, I kept his methods alive. It's all I have left of him." Something in Beckett's expression gentled. "My father was the opposite, taught me that the world was hard and you had to be harder to survive. Beat that lesson into me literally more times than I can count. That why you run your ranch the way you do, ran it that way. Past tense, apparently." He smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger, less burdened. "You're changing things around here, Miss Everhart." "Helena, if we're going to work together 6 days a week, you might as well use my given name. Helena." He tested it, and she liked the way it sounded in his rough voice. "Then you should call me Beckett." The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, and for a moment they just stood there in the pen with the sorrel horse between them, something unspoken building in the warm evening air. 3 weeks into the contract, a late spring storm rolled across the valley. Rain hammered the ranch buildings and lightning split the sky. The mustangs panicked, circling their pen in wild-eyed terror. Helena ran from the house without grabbing a coat, her nightgown soaking through instantly. Several ranch hands were already trying to calm the horses, but their shouting only made things worse. "Back away," Helena called over the thunder. "You're scaring them more." She climbed the fence, dropping into the pen with 40 terrified animals. It was reckless and dangerous, and Beckett's heart stopped when he saw her. "Helena, get out of there." He ran toward the pen, but she ignored him. She began to sing. Her voice rose above the storm, wordless and melodic, the lullaby her mother once sang. She walked through the churning mass of horses, one hand extended, singing that gentle song. One by one, the mustangs calmed. They clustered around her, and she touched each one, her voice never wavering. The storm raged on, but within that pen, peace descended like a blessing. Beckett watched from the fence, rain streaming down his face, and felt something crack open in his chest. She was extraordinary, brave and gentle, and utterly unlike anyone he'd ever known. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was falling in love with her. When the storm passed and Helena finally climbed out of the pen, she found Beckett waiting with a blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders, his hands lingering. That was the most foolish, incredible thing I've ever seen. She was shivering, her teeth chattering. They needed someone. Couldn't just let them panic themselves to death. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. She looked up at him, water droplets clinging to her eyelashes. "Beckett, those horses trust me now, really trust me. We'll finish the contract early at this rate." He should have been pleased. Instead, the thought of Helena leaving in 3 weeks filled him with something close to grief. "What will you do after the contract ends? Pay off my father's land. Start my own small operation, maybe. Finally build something stable." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Why?" "Because I want you to stay. Because this ranch feels empty when you're not here. Because I'm in love with you and the thought of you leaving is unbearable." He said none of that. Instead, he cleared his throat. "Just wondering. Come on, let's get you inside before you catch pneumonia." The next 2 weeks were bittersweet torture. Beckett found excuses to work near Helena, to ask her questions, to watch her in the corrals. She'd become essential to his operation, but more than that, she'd become essential to him. The ranch hands noticed. They teased Beckett when Helena wasn't around, making comments about the way he watched her, but he couldn't seem to help himself. Helena felt the shift too. She caught Beckett's eyes on her more often now, and the weight of his gaze made her pulse quicken. When he handed her tools, their fingers touched longer than necessary. When he demonstrated a technique she'd taught him, she stood too close, breathing in the scent of leather and sage that clung to him. She told herself it was just proximity, just the natural result of working closely with someone, but her heart knew better. On a Wednesday afternoon, with 2 weeks left in the contract, they worked together with a particularly challenging Mustang, a steel-gray gelding who'd been fighting every attempt at training. The horse was intelligent but stubborn, testing every boundary. "He reminds me of someone," Helena said with a meaningful look at Beckett. "Are you comparing me to a stubborn horse, if the horseshoe fits?" Beckett laughed, a real laugh that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "Fair enough. So how do you propose we handle this stubborn beast?" "Same way I'd handle any stubborn creature, patience and understanding." She approached the gelding slowly. Sometimes the hardest ones just need someone to prove they're not going to give up on them. The horse snorted and backed away. Helena paused, waiting. Beckett watched the dance between woman and animal, saw the gentle persistence in her every movement, and suddenly understood that she was teaching him something that went far beyond horse training. She was showing him a different way to be in the world, a way built on trust and patience instead of force and fear. The gelding finally approached, and Helena rewarded him with soft words and gentle touches. Within an hour, the horse that had fought everyone else was following her lead. "You have a gift," Beckett said when she left the pen. "It's not a gift, it's just caring enough to do the work the right way." She wiped sweat from her forehead. "Anyone could learn it if they wanted to." "Not anyone. You see things others miss. You feel what the horse is feeling." "That's rare, Helena. You're rare." The intensity in his voice made her breath catch. They stood in the dusty yard between corrals, the afternoon sun beating down, and the air between them felt charged. "Beckett." She started, but he shook his head. "I know. Contract ends in 2 weeks. You've got plans. I just wanted you to know that you're remarkable." He walked away before she could respond, leaving Helena standing alone with her heart pounding and her carefully laid plans suddenly feeling hollow. That evening, a rider arrived from town with a telegram. Beckett read it at the dinner table, his expression darkening. "Problem?" Helena asked. "Cavalry inspector is coming next week to evaluate the horses, a week earlier than expected." He set the telegram down. "We're not ready." "Yes, we are. 28 horses are fully trained, the remaining 12 are close. We can finish them in time. Not to cavalry standards. They'll test them hard, push them to see how they handle stress and chaos. Some of these horses have only been under saddle a few days." Helena straightened. "Then we work harder. Push through this final week. Your men know my methods now. We can do this together." Beckett met her eyes across the table. The word "together" resonated between them, meaning more than just the horses. The following week was brutal. They worked from before dawn until after dark, training the remaining horses, testing the ones they thought were ready, drilling the ranch hands on cavalry requirements. Helena barely slept, sustained by coffee and determination. Beckett worked beside her every step, and their partnership deepened into something profound. They anticipated each other's movements, communicated with glances instead of words, functioned as a seamless unit. Late one night they stood in the barn checking on a mare who'd shown signs of colic earlier. The crisis had passed, and the mare was resting comfortably. Lantern light cast warm shadows across the stalls. "You should sleep," Beckett said. "You've been up since 4 this morning. So have you." "I'm used to it. So am I." Helena leaned against the stall door, exhaustion making her honest. "I'm going to miss this, miss working with you." Beckett turned to face her fully. "Then stay. After the contract ends, stay on as my partner, equal share in the operation. We could build something incredible together, Helena. You have to know that." Her heart leaped, but doubt chased close behind. "As your partner, or as another employee you're trying to keep around because I'm useful, as everything." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "I'm in love with you. I think I started falling that first day when you told me patience mattered more than speed. You've changed everything for me. How I work, how I think, how I see the world. I don't want you to leave, not in 2 weeks, not ever." Helena's eyes burned with unexpected tears. "Beckett, I can't. My father's land, it's all I have left of my family. If I don't pay off that loan, I lose it. I can't just abandon that. So don't. Use your wages to secure the land, then come back. Or I'll buy the land and you can do whatever you want with it. Keep it, sell it, I don't care. I just need you to know that I love you, and if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, we can figure out the rest together." "A fraction?" Helena's voice broke. "Beckett, I'm completely in love with you. I've been trying not to be, telling myself it was just proximity and shared work, but I can't stop. When I think about leaving, I feel like I'm tearing myself in half, but I can't be someone who needs rescuing. I can't let you buy my way out of my problems." He cupped her face gently in both hands. "Then don't. Keep your independence, pay your debts your way, and come back when you're ready. I'm not trying to rescue you, Helena. I'm asking you to build a life with me, as equals, as partners, as people who love each other." She rose on her toes and kissed him, pouring all her fear and hope and desperate love into that kiss. Beckett's arms came around her, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them in the warm barn with lantern light flickering. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Beckett rested his forehead against hers. "Is that a yes?" That's a maybe we figure this out together. I need to settle my father's affairs. But after that, if you still want me, then yes. I'll come back and we'll build something amazing. I'll want you in 2 weeks and in 2 years and in 20 years, Beckett promised. Take whatever time you need. I'll be here. The cavalry inspector arrived on a scorching June morning, a stern-faced captain with decades of experience and impossibly high standards. He put the horses through rigorous tests, firing pistols near their heads, waving blankets, charging at them on horseback. Helena watched with her heart in her throat, but the horses held steady. Every single one of them. When the captain finished his inspection, he approached Beckett with an expression that might have been approval. Never seen cavalry mounts this well trained. Whatever you've been doing, Ashford, keep doing it. I'm approving the full contract and recommending your operation for future purchases. Relief flooded through Beckett. The contract meant financial stability, meant his ranch's reputation was restored. But when he looked at Helena, he knew the horses were the least important thing she'd given him. That evening, the ranch celebrated with a barbecue. The hands raised glasses to Helena, thanking her for teaching them something new, something better. Carl, the skeptic, actually apologized for doubting her. You proved an old dog could learn new tricks, he said gruffly. This ranch is better for having known you. Helena said her goodbyes the next morning. Beckett had paid her $60 as promised, plus a bonus for the contract's success. It was more than enough to settle her debts and start fresh. He rode with her as far as the property line. Neither spoke much. There was too much feeling for words. At the boundary, Helena reined in her horse and turned to him. "How long do you think you'll need?" Beckett asked, though his voice was rough with the effort of letting her go. 3 weeks, maybe a month. Long enough to finalize the land papers, put the property in order, figure out what I want to do with it. Then I'll come back. If the offer still stands. It'll stand. He reached across the space between their horses and took her hand. "I love you, Helena Everhart. Come back to me." "I love you too, and I will, I promise." She rode away without looking back, knowing that if she did, she might never leave. Beckett watched until she disappeared over the horizon, already counting the days until she returned. The weeks passed slowly. Beckett threw himself into work, expanding the corrals, hiring more hands, preparing for Helena's return by building a future worthy of her. He trained horses using her methods, spreading her philosophy of gentleness and partnership throughout his operation. Other ranchers noticed the difference in his stock and started asking questions. Beckett found himself teaching Helena's techniques to neighbors, her legacy spreading across the county. At night, he sat on his porch and thought about her. Wondered if she was safe, if she was thinking of him, if she'd really come back. Doubt crept in during the dark hours, but he pushed it away. Helena had promised. She'd return. 4 weeks after she left, a rider appeared on the horizon at sunset. Beckett's heart leaped even before he could make out the details. He knew her silhouette, the way she sat her horse, the set of her shoulders. Helena was coming home. He met her in the yard, pulling her from her saddle the moment she dismounted. She threw her arms around his neck and he lifted her off the ground, spinning her in a circle while she laughed. "I'm back," she said unnecessarily, her face buried in his shoulder. "The land is settled. I rented it to a good family who'll take care of it. Everything's handled. I'm back and I'm staying if you'll still have me." "If I'll still have you." Beckett set her down but didn't release her. "Helena, these have been the longest 4 weeks of my life. Yes, I'll have you, today, tomorrow, and every day after if you'll let me." "Then you'd better kiss me, Cowboy, because I've missed you so much I can barely stand it." He kissed her there in the yard with the sunset painting the sky crimson and gold. The ranch hands who'd gathered to welcome Helena back cheered and whistled, but Beckett didn't care. He had everything he needed right here in his arms. That night at dinner, Beckett stood and clinked his glass for attention. "I have an announcement. Helena's agreed to become my full partner in this operation. Equal ownership, equal say in all decisions. And if I have anything to say about it, she'll soon be my partner in every other way too." Helena blushed but didn't look away. "Is that a proposal, Beckett Ashford?" "Not yet. When I propose, it'll be proper, but it's a warning. Fair notice that I intend to marry you as soon as you'll have me." "Then consider yourself warned too. I intend to say yes." The ranch erupted in applause and well wishes. Carl wiped at his eyes with the back of his hand, claiming dust allergies, but nobody believed him. 2 months later, on a clear September morning, Beckett and Helena were married in Shafter's small church. The whole town turned out, along with every ranch hand and half the county's horse breeders. Helena wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers from the ranch. Beckett wore his best suit and couldn't stop smiling. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Beckett kissed her so thoroughly that the congregation broke into scandalized laughter. Helena didn't care. She was home, truly home, with a man who loved her and a future they'd build together. The years that followed were good ones. The Ashford Ranch became famous across Texas for producing the finest cavalry horses in the state, all trained with Helena's gentle methods. Other ranchers sent their problem horses to learn from the woman who could break them gentler than anyone. And Helena discovered she loved teaching almost as much as she loved the training itself. In the spring of 1878, Helena gave birth to their first child, a boy they named Thomas after her father. He had Beckett's storm blue eyes and Helena's patient nature. Beckett cried when he held his son for the first time, overwhelmed by the depth of love he felt for his small family. "He's perfect," Beckett whispered, tracing the baby's tiny fingers. "You're perfect. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Helena corrected, tired but radiant. "We found each other." 2 years later, a daughter arrived, red-haired and fierce from the moment she drew breath. They named her Grace, and she lived up to her name with an elegance that belied her wild spirit. The children grew up running through the corrals, learning to ride before they could properly walk, absorbing their mother's philosophy of kindness and their father's work ethic. The ranch prospered. Beckett and Helena expanded the operation, buying adjacent land, building a reputation that extended far beyond Texas. They trained horses for the cavalry, for cattlemen, for anyone who wanted an animal that would give everything willingly rather than grudgingly. Their partnership was the foundation of it all, built on mutual respect and love that deepened with every passing year. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Beckett took Helena riding out to the ridge overlooking their valley. The land stretched before them, golden in the late afternoon sun, dotted with grazing horses and the buildings they'd expanded together. "You ever regret it?" Beckett asked. "Giving up your independence, tying yourself to this place and to me?" Helena looked at him with eyes full of love and no small amount of amusement. "Beckett Ashford, I didn't give up anything. I gained everything. This ranch is as much mine as yours. Our children are perfect. And you, stubborn man that you are the love of my life. The only thing I regret is not kissing you sooner. That can be remedied." He leaned across and kissed her there on horseback, 10 years of marriage having done nothing to diminish the spark between them. "Besides," Helena said when they broke apart, "I still gentle horses better than you do." Beckett laughed. "Can't argue with that, though I've gotten pretty good under your instruction. You've gotten excellent, but I'll never let you forget who taught you. Wouldn't dream of it." They rode back to the ranch as the sun set, their horses walking side by side, and Helena felt a contentment so deep it was almost overwhelming. Life hadn't always been easy. There had been droughts and financial scares, childhood illnesses that terrified them both, and the constant challenge of running a major operation in unforgiving country. But through it all, they'd had each other, and that made everything possible. That night, after the children were asleep, Helena and Beckett sat on their porch watching the stars emerge. His arm was around her shoulders, and she leaned into his warmth. "What are you thinking about?" Beckett asked. "About that first day you rode into Shafter and offered me $60 to teach you my way. I was so focused on the money, on saving my father's land. I never imagined I'd find something worth more than all of that combined." "What did you find?" "A partner. A home. A love that makes everything else make sense." She turned to look at him. "You changed my life, Beckett, in the best possible way." "We changed each other," he corrected. "You taught me that strength doesn't have to mean hardness. That gentleness is its own kind of power." "You made me a better man, Helena, better at everything. Keep talking like that and I'll drag you to bed right now." "Is that a threat or a promise?" His eyes glinted with humor and heat. "Both." He stood, pulling her to her feet, and swept her up in his arms despite her laughing protests. "Then let's not waste time talking." Years continued to pass, measured in seasons and horse sales, in children's birthdays and quiet evenings on the porch. Thomas grew tall and serious, taking after his father's build but his mother's gentle approach to everything. Grace became a force of nature, riding like a demon and charming everyone she met. In 1883, a third child arrived, another boy they named Samuel, who proved to be the perfect blend of his siblings, thoughtful like Thomas but bold like Grace. The ranch hands who'd been skeptical of Helena's methods back in that first summer became her fiercest advocates. Carl stayed on until age finally forced him to retire, and he never stopped telling anyone who'd listen about the woman who'd revolutionized the Ashford ranch. New hands learned Helena's techniques as part of their basic training, and the philosophy of gentle horse breaking spread throughout the region. By 1890, the Ashford Ranch was legendary. Buyers came from as far as California and Missouri, willing to pay premium prices for horses trained the Ashford way. Helena took pride in knowing her father's beliefs had been proven right, that his legacy lived on through every horse she touched. But more than the success or the reputation, Helena treasured the life she'd built with Beckett. Their love had weathered time and trial, deepening into something unshakable. They still worked together every day, still found reasons to steal kisses in the barn, still sat up late talking about dreams and plans. He was her partner in every sense of the word, and she couldn't imagine her life without him. On a warm evening in May of 1892, the whole family gathered for dinner. Thomas was 18 now, already managing significant portions of the ranch operation. Grace, 16, had recently started training horses on her own, showing a natural talent that made both parents proud. Samuel, 9 years old, entertained everyone with stories about the new foal he was convinced would be the fastest horse in Texas. Beckett sat at the head of the table, watching his family with a satisfaction that bordered on awe. Helena caught his eye and smiled, that same smile that had first captured his heart over a dusty corral in Shafter. He raised his glass. "A toast," he announced. "To my wife, who taught a stubborn cowboy that there was a better way to do just about everything. To our children who make every day an adventure. And to this family we've built together. I'm the luckiest man in Texas." "Hear, hear," the children chorused, raising their own glasses. Helena felt tears prick her eyes, the good kind, born of happiness so complete it demanded expression. "To family," she added, "and to love that lasts." After dinner, she and Beckett walked out to the corrals, a habit they'd developed over the years. The horses nickered at their approach, dozens of animals who knew their touch and trusted their presence. Helena leaned against the fence and Beckett stood behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on her head. "You remember that night during the storm?" Helena asked. "When you said you were falling in love with me. I remember thinking you were going to get yourself killed and I'd never get the chance to tell you how I felt. Terrifying moment of my life. I was never in real danger. Those horses wouldn't hurt me. I know that now. But back then, I was still learning to trust your instincts." Helena turned in his arms to face him. "And now I'd trust you with anything. My life, my children, my heart. You've never given me reason to doubt you. Good answer." She kissed him, soft and sweet. "Because you're stuck with me forever, Beckett Ashford. Hope you can live with that." "I think I can manage," he said with a grin, pulling her closer. "Somehow I think I can manage just fine." The stars came out above the Ashford ranch, bright and endless, and somewhere in the corrals a horse whinnied softly. Helena rested her head against Beckett's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and felt the perfect rightness of her life. She'd come to his ranch to earn money and save her father's land. She'd found so much more, a true partnership, a family, and a love that had transformed them both. They'd built something extraordinary together, horse by horse, day by day, choice by choice. And as they stood there under the Texas sky, surrounded by the fruits of their shared labor and love, Helena knew with absolute certainty that every moment of their journey had been worth it. The stubborn cowboy who'd asked her to teach him her way had given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. And she wouldn't change a single moment of it.